Did you know Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken airs 5 nights a week at 10 p.m.? That's 5 nights of talking about ghosts, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. We're talking about the paranormal every Monday through Friday with some of the most trusted names in the field. Join us and step into the unknown with Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken, Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. Only if you dare.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Showers and thunderstorms later this afternoon. Some storms could be severe with a high of 73. Showers and storms continue tonight with a low of 42. Don't miss Sasha Colby's Strip 2 tour, an electrifying blend of dance, storytelling, and drag artistry at the Fillmore Minneapolis October 9th. Tickets at thefillmoreminneapolis.com, and listen to The Gailey Show and Matt McNeil Show for your chances to win.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting live at 2 p.m. from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk, weeknights at 8 p.m. Welcome to The Gailey Show. I am your host, John Parker. In studio with me today, Jim Pounds.
Good afternoon, Twin Cities, and good evening, Chicago.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Patrick is in the control room, making sure this is all flying smoothly. Patrick, how are you today?
Doing pretty well. Now I'm thinking about some deep dish pizza and since we're going to be on in Chicago.
So am I. Let's go.
Will they send us that? Is that part of the deal?
We have to
I
go
don't think
get
that's
it.
Part of the deal.
Yeah.
I will gladly go to Chicago for some of that pizza. So what is on our show today? We're going to continue our recurring segment of Is It Left-Wing Extremism? Where we take a progressive policy and break it down to see if we have an extreme left wing in the U.S. that is just as bad as MAGA and their right-wing extremism. Today, we're looking at universal health care. Plus, it's election day in Canada. How are the gays doing up there? There's been some progress in Poland. They have finally abolished their last LGBTQ-free zone, quote unquote. Minnesota is also suing Trump for bullying trans kids. National implications on that lawsuit. And also, speaking of elections, tomorrow we follow special elections as they're occurring over the country. And tomorrow there's actually a state Senate special election in northern Minnesota that may be a flip if the Democrats can take it. So we're going to talk about that later in the show. But up first, hello, Chicago.
Hello, Chicago.
We are The Gailey Show, and so we wanted to take a minute to introduce ourselves. So for folks who don't know, starting today, The Gailey Show is airing weeknights at 8 p.m. on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
Thank you.
Right? And we are just really happy that the station is taking a chance on us and bringing our, the gays to weeknights on WCPT. There's a really fantastic weekend show they've had for a number of years out Chicago with Scott and Ellen, or Ellen and Scott.
Ellen and Scott.
And we got to talk with them for the first time yesterday, and that was a lot of fun. And so we're looking forward to hosting them here. I believe we're looking at next week. Stay tuned. More details
to
come.
They were very gracious to us, I thought.
Very much so.
They seemed excited that the station was getting a little gayer, whatever that exactly means to you. And
also very happy. Thank you to Patty Vasquez for hosting us today to talk about The Gailey Show coming weeknights as well. So what we do on the show, we are the only daily LGBTQ progressive news and talk show in the country. And so we take that very seriously. So something that you can expect on this show is we have partnerships with LGBTQ newspapers, 2 currently. So one with Chicago's Windy City Times. Their managing editor, Jake Wittig, will join us every other Wednesday. So that will be starting not this Wednesday, but the Wednesday after. And then every other Wednesday thereafter, we'll be getting Chicago's local LGBTQ news provided by an award-winning newspaper of Windy City Times. And then this Wednesday, and also bi-weekly, basically every other week, every Wednesday, you're going to get an amazing newspaper, right? So this upcoming Wednesday, we have the White House correspondent for the Washington Blade, Christopher Kane. He's been joining us since the beginning in January, sharing his reporting from in the room where the crazy happens. And so we look forward to being in conversation with him to get the news that's happening out of the insanity that is the White House, and also national headlines. We also have had folks like from the Dallas Voice and Arizona's Lookout. We look forward to hosting them again and expanding this partnership with LGBTQ newspapers. So very much looking forward to that. That's something that you can expect on The Gailey Show. Every Thursday, we have a special episode that we call Thinking Clearly, Thinking Queerly. And this is a weekly episode where we have a single guest for the majority of the episode. And we talk about them, about their area of expertise, right? So we had episodes, we've had a doctor on who provides gender affirming care to folks under the age of 19 to get the actual like facts of what that actually looks like in the care that goes into that. So that was really fun. We've had authors on there to talk about fascism as it relates to the queer community. We've had a couple of guests come on and talk about what does fascism look like? What did fascism look like in with the Nazis? How does that relate to what we're dealing with today? We've had a chef on to talk about what does it mean to create queer cafes. We've had authors on to talk about bullying.
A lawyer from Gitmo.
Right. We had a lawyer who was at Gitmo defending Al-Qaeda suspects and was talking about how the defendants that he was representing were actually more LGBTQ friendly than the government, the United States government that he was working for.
Right.
That was a very, very interesting conversation. You can go to our website, heartlandsignal.com or am950radio.com. You can go to our pages there and you can find all of our previous episodes. And then on Fridays, we do culture and entertainment. So that's our opportunity to just sort of chill for the week, take a break from the headlines, find a book you can read or film that you can stream or go to the theaters, TV shows. We do reviews of those on an ongoing basis. Plus, we do author interviews for local productions. We have folks that are in the Twin Cities who are acting or performing or directing. We'll also start doing that in Chicago as well. Speaking of which, there is a new exhibition, I guess is how they would call it, called The First Homosexuals. It's going to be at Wrightwood 659, opening this Friday in Chicago. And we have a curator of that, Dr. Jonathan Katz. So he's going to be joining us. And for folks who are in the Chicago-ish region, even from the Twin Cities, if you want to drive down, this is going to be a fascinating exhibit. Tune in this Friday to find out why. And then Monday through Wednesday is our live news. And in the afternoon in the Twin Cities at 2 p.m., we talk about all of the headlines. We do analysis. We bring on guests. We talk about all sorts of different things as it relates to the queer community, but also for our allies, right? And so I know that folks are like, well, are you just for the gays? And I'm like, well, yes and no. So we're also, if you have a friend of the, if you have a friend, if you have a sibling, if you have a child, if you have a parent, if you have an aunt or a gunkle, this is a show for the community and bringing the community together. And so we're very pleased and grateful to the leadership of WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk, because you all have been a leader in Progressive Talk and have been such a groundbreaking programs. And so we're very happy to be joining the family and supporting the work that you do.
We've had a few calls from people not in the community, and they've said, you made me think about things I hadn't thought about that way, or maybe didn't think about it all, and now you've got me thinking. And I'm not saying I'm all the way on your side yet, but I'm learning and I'm open to it, and
we appreciate
that's
that.
a win.
And if you are at 2 p.m. Central listening live right now, then you can call us. Speaking of calling in, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205 to join the conversation. So it is election day in Canada. Polls are open until 10 p.m. Central, when the final Western provinces will be voting. Elections Canada is reporting that almost 7.3 million people voted early in this national election, to determine who their next prime minister will be and who will be in charge of their version of Congress. That is a record, actually, a 25% increase from the 2021 election.
I wonder why that is.
Now, well, let's talk about this for a second. So the Conservatives were polling 25 points ahead of the Liberal Party earlier this year. Then because the Liberal Party Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, very unpopular, he quit.
Yeah.
And then America happened, and MAGA, and Trump saying that they're going to take over Canada and make them the 51st state.
Right.
He was just posting something today talking about how they need to vote for him. Essentially, when you're reading his Truth Social post, you're like, is he on the ballot? He's basically saying that vote for him and there will be no more border and you will be the 51st state and we're going to get rid of these old borders that were, and you're going to, it's all win, no lose. It's just absolutely bonkers. And to me, if that is picked up by the Canadian media and social media, it's going to be a landslide.
Spread it around
for the liberals.
Because in his little teeny tiny mind, it is about him, but it's it's not.
In his massive ego.
Right.
Interesting. So there's a couple things about this election that are different from what we went through last year. One related to the queer community and one related to Trudeau's replacement, Mark Carney. So he has been given some freedom that Vice President Kamala Harris was not given when Biden quit the race. And that is how Carney has been able to be so anti-Trudeau. He has been out there saying, nope, Trudeau was wrong about this.
Right.
And if you elect us, we are not going to be doing that anymore. Right. He's been able to carve out an entirely new and different identity for himself. Now, part of that is the difference in the system. When Trudeau resigned, he was no longer prime minister. Right. So that meant that Carney got to be prime minister. So, Kamala didn't have that opportunity, right? She didn't have an opportunity to name a cabinet like Carney did. She hasn't been able to be the person responding. Carney has been the acting prime minister and yet is able to be the change candidate somehow as well, because he's like, no, Trudeau was wrong on this and this and this, and this is why the party is different now. This is why I'm different now.
Yep.
But that's just really interesting to me. It makes me wonder how things would have been slightly different. I am of the ilk that Kamala did an amazing job given what she was handed and what she had to do. And I think that it was a fantastic campaign given all of the constraints and hurdles that were placed upon her, not least of which, systemic racism and sexism in this country, which came out in force, to make sure that a woman wasn't in the White House and to make sure that there wasn't another person of color in the White House.
In Democratic circles too.
But it also makes me wonder, if she had been able to resign from the administration and say, I am doing my own campaign, who would have that Kamala Harris have been if she had had the opportunity to define herself as herself and say, well, you know what, actually, I disagreed with the Biden administration on this and I was happy to serve, but okay, there's that. Right. I'm not going to get into that, down that rabbit hole because that's all speculation at this point.
Right.
What I was also curious about was to see how queer people were factoring into this election, because here in the US, when the conservatives are having problems, they just trot out all of hating on the queers, and that gets them all sorts of votes. So I wanted to see, okay, the conservatives lost a 25-point polling advantage. Were they doing the same thing? And it turns out no, that the LGBTQ community has been largely ignored throughout the campaign by both the major parties, the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party. One thing that started coming up here that I'll get into when we come back from the break is this weird story about one of Carney's kids, which is a complete lie, but there it is. We're going to take a short break here. We're going to talk more about this story and other queer news. You can check out more progressive news at am950radio.com and heartlandsignal.com.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. So avoid gimmicks and call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067, or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
Hey, it's Jennifer from AM 950. I'm 57, and lately I've definitely been feeling it. Lower back pain, hip aches, brain fog, and serious lack of energy. That's when I decided to try Hypercharge Wellness, and I'm so glad I did. At Hypercharge Wellness, they focus on proactive wellness and medication-free solutions to help you feel better and live healthier. Their FDA-approved light therapy helped reduce my chronic pain and inflammation, and the results have been nothing short of life-changing. My back pain and stiffness are improving, and I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. They also offer laser therapy that targets muscles and joints, perfect for injury recovery and pain management. Whether you're dealing with fatigue, chronic pain, or mental fog, Hypercharge Wellness has treatments designed just for you to boost energy, improve clarity, and reduce inflammation. Take control of your health and wellness today with their $49.99 introductory session and consultation at any of their 3 locations. Visit hyperchargeclinic.com for more information.
Chanhassen Dinner Theaters brings you its most popular show of all time, Grease. You'll hear all your favorite hits from the Broadway musical and the movie. Join the whole gang at Rydell High. We'll sing, we'll dance, we'll bring you back to high school life in the 50s. Poodle skirts, bobby socks, the soda shop, and drive-in movies. Grease. It'll rock your socks off. Order your tickets today. Visit chanhassendt.com.
Hi, this is Paul Metza, host of the Wall of Power Radio Hour. We have been on the air on AM 950 for 10 years. We feature cool people from all walks of life in all 50 states. We've had musicians, politicians, actors, poets, people with great stories or a tale to tell. Tune in every Saturday night at 6 p.m. on AM 950, and podcasts are available on all streaming services.
The smash hit musical sensation Frozen is sweeping into Minnesota in a dazzling original production at Children's Theatre Company. Running now through June 15th, this live stage production of the Disney favorite will delight audiences of all ages. Enjoy all your favorite songs from the movie, plus mesmerizing new music and stunning sets and costumes. You won't want to let it go. Don't miss the musical event of the spring. Get your tickets today at childrenstheatre.org.
Welcome back to The Daily Show. I am your host, John Parker. In studio with me, executive producer Jim Pounds. It is 21 minutes past the hour. Before the break, we were talking about the Canadian national election that is today. They're going to choose their new prime minister and also their new Congress, their version of Congress. And I was curious about how the conservatives were playing the LGBTQ card. And it was really interesting to me that they weren't playing it very hard. There was a right-wing media group over the past couple of weeks that was creating the story that one of the Liberal candidate, Mark Carney's kids, Sasha Carney, who's a writer living in New York, that they were trying to expose Sasha as trans and saying that there's some weird cover-up to hide it. But Sasha isn't trans. So if you see that happening on, TikTok or whatever social media platform you're on, like, none of Mark Carney's kids are trans. It's not obligated, even if they are, to disclose that. And it's this weird idea that having a trans kid disqualifies you from being prime minister. Very, very weird. But very interesting to me that queer issues were not latched on upon by the conservatives to make a case to the Canadians to vote for them. I will say, though, that the Liberal Party has also been conspicuously silent about the LGBTQ community. When I was sort of diving into this, Carney actually red flagged when he took over. When Trudeau resigned, one of the first things he did was eliminate the cabinet positions dedicated to people with disabilities and women and gender equality issues. Yeah. That was kind of a red flag for folks. And then he did say in his first speech on the issue this month that his party will protect LGBTQ Canadians. I guess we'll have to see. I say that because he's the former head of the Bank of Canada and the former head of the Bank of England, and a former Goldman Sachs banker. Ugh. So I'm really hesitant about labeling him a liberal.
Relative, I guess.
He may be, center-right on the economy and maybe center-left on social issues, and somehow that's considered to be a liberal these days. But, again, polls close at 10 p.m., we should know the results later tonight on who it is. Again, polling suggests that it should be the Liberal Party, but we live in a parallel universe now, so who knows who's going to win tonight. Okay, so here's a wild story from Poland, one of the most homophobic countries in Europe. And I say that because the officials from a council in southeastern Poland voted last Thursday to end a regulation that was introduced by the previous Law and Justice government. That was their name of their party, Law and Justice. During that time, 100 local councils declared their regions LGBT-free or banning LGBT ideology. Now, that amounted to 1/3 of the country was living under one of these LGBT-free zones.
Right.
Now, as I was diving into it, apparently the resolutions were symbolic and unenforceable, but they were promoting this super hostile environment and discrimination and violence against LGBTQ people. Like, apparently there was a government magazine, a pro-government magazine, rather, not a government magazine. Think like Fox News, essentially, if they were doing a magazine, handing out LGBT-free stickers to readers to proclaim that their homes, their vehicles, their businesses only welcomed heterosexual people.
Yeah. Probably often put up or, supported by bisexuals who simply don't want to be identified,
Well, I mean, there could have been, folks, who were trying to, hide for a variety of reasons, very good reasons, stay in the closet because that was a very hostile environment. The EU was really upset about all of this, and then they actually withheld billions of euros in funding, regional funding for various places in Poland who had passed these LGBT zone weird regulation, symbolic nonsense, because they said it violates Europe's fundamental values.
So what is it that happened the other week? The last one of these fell?
Great question. The Polish courts in June of 22 said, no, these resolutions are against the Constitution of Poland, and the local authorities who adopted these and passed these were actually exceeding their powers. So all y'all need to stop.
Right.
That was in June of 2022. It took this particular council just under 3 years to finally repeal it officially off of the books.
Yeah. Well,
which is bonkers.
I guess that's a sort of a symbolic relief, maybe. Welcome to the 19th century or 20th century, maybe.
But that's one of those, that's where I was also kind of curious about the Canadian election, because obviously we have our experience here in the United States, where when they want to get votes, the conservatives come after the LGBTQ community.
Yep.
In Poland, it was that exact same model.
Yep.
In Hungary, it was that exact same model. I have thoughts. We're going to talk about Hungary later on in this episode when it comes to our segment, Is It Left-Wing Extremism? But here in the US, just to show you, the ACLU is currently tracking 575 anti-LGBTQ bills in state legislatures across the country. There are 18 in Minnesota, 15 in Illinois. Now, that doesn't mean that they're laws yet, right? Bills are bills. But in Minnesota and in Illinois, none of them have been passed. Good. But none of them have failed yet either. So they're all advancing through their respective legislative processes, like being sent to committee, being debated, et cetera, et cetera. Fun fact, which state didn't have any anti-LGBTQ bills introduced into their legislature in 2025?
May I guess Vermont?
Oh my God, yeah. Did you know that?
No, I just, it seems to be one of the most liberal, and, it's a small, pretty reasonable, sane state.
I would have thought Hawaii.
Yeah, that would be a good another guess. Yeah,
maybe Hawaii. Yeah, Hawaii. Maybe one of those. Like an Oregon or a Massachusetts. But it was Vermont.
Yeah, a state not frightened by the idea of democratic socialism. They managed to eat their breakfast and not lose it over that thought.
Right.
So, good for you, Vermont.
It is. On the one hand, I find it very encouraging, maybe, that the conservative parties in Canada haven't turned into anti-LGBTQ trolls.
Yep.
On the other hand, I just think that obviously the major thing that everybody's talking about is how Trump wants to make them the 51st state.
Right.
And how all of these tariffs, and I guess I understand. And the thing that I'm kind of also about is that the there's the left-wing party in Canada, so further left than so I guess I would call them the progressives, their version of progressives. That party is actually bleeding voters. It's the New Democratic Party. They're the left wing, and it seems like a lot of their voters are actually going for the Liberals to make sure that the Liberals win. But they also can create coalition governments. So I wish that NDP wasn't losing as many votes as it is. But anyway, that's the news on that front. We're going to fit in a break here. This show and progressive radio is not possible without our advertisers and sponsors. Shop with them, do business with them, tell them that you heard about them on The Gailey Show, on AM 950 radio, or on WCPT 820.
This is Santita Jackson, Minneapolis, St. Paul. I couldn't be more excited about starting our days together, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. Central, on the Progressive Voice of Minnesota.
Hey, it's Tom. Even though I don't live in Minnesota, I've spent enough time there to know how quickly the weather can change. One day it's sunny and the next you're preparing for severe weather. That's where solar plus battery storage from All Energy Solar comes in. With this power-saving combination, you'll gain energy independence and stay connected through blackouts, emergencies, or extreme weather. Solar plus battery storage is perfect for rural areas where power outages are more common, or for anyone tired of worrying about rolling blackouts. And with plenty of incentives still available, All Energy Solar will work with you to make sure you get the most savings possible. For over 15 years, All Energy Solar has been a trusted partner in helping Minnesotans move to affordable, renewable energy. They offer the best battery technology and their own licensed electricians and contractors to ensure top quality installation. So stop paying the utility company and start generating and saving your own power. Get a free consultation today at allenergysolar.com.
Women, are you ready to empower your wellness? Join Hypercharge Health and Skin Deep Aesthetics for an inspiring evening dedicated to your holistic well-being. It's Empower Your Wellness, an evening for women, happening Tuesday, May 13th from 6 to 9 o'clock p.m. at 7450 France Avenue South, Suite 240 in Edina. This exclusive event is your opportunity to explore innovative approaches to health and beauty with insights from a panel of wellness professionals. Topics include integrative medicine, personalized concierge care, hormone balance for energy and sexual wellness, aesthetics and body contouring to boost confidence, and support for your mental and emotional well-being. Come learn, connect, and take meaningful steps toward a more vibrant, empowered you. Tickets are just $75, and the full amount can be applied toward a future service. Space is limited, so don't wait. Reserve your spot now at hyperchargehealth.com or call 952-247-4785. Empower your wellness, because your health, confidence, and peace of mind matter.
This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, weekdays at 5 p.m. On our show, you'll hear about Native issues like treaties, protecting Mother Earth, and holding our elected officials accountable. Weekly correspondents like Dr. Stately, State Senator Mary Kunesh, Robert Lilligren, and Bob Blake update us with the latest news from Turtle Island. Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. Listen weekdays at 5 p.m. or watch the show on Native Roots Radio social media accounts. Ho-wah!
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Showers and thunderstorms later this afternoon. Some storms could be severe with a high of 73. Showers and storms continue tonight with a low of 42. Grab a tray at Cafe Latte and pick from their award-winning selections of soups, salads, sandwiches, and desserts. Cafe Latte is at Victoria Street and Grand Avenue in St. Paul or at cafelatte.com. ATNF AM 950, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Broadcasting live in the 2 p.m. hour from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, weeknights at 8 p.m. Welcome back to the Gailey Show. It is 33 minutes after the hour. I'm your host, John Parker. Jim Pounds, executive producer, in studio with me.
Hey, everybody.
If you're listening during the 2 p.m. hour, our call-in number, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. What are your thoughts on Canada's election today, or Poland repealing its final LGBTQ-free zone? We're going to talk about a story now that has national implications, even though it's happening here out of Minnesota. So Minnesota is suing Trump and the Trump administration for bullying trans kids. On April 22nd, so this was last week, the Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. For folks in Chicago, if you don't know Keith Ellison, get to know Keith Ellison. He is a progressive, and he does not back away from a fight, and that's also why I wanted to talk about this here, because this is an excellent case that he is bringing forward.
Former congressman, we should say, from the state of Minnesota.
My former congressman,
Yeah,
right. In my district, Congressional District 5.
Yep.
So the lawsuit is targeting the executive order that withholds federal funding from educational programs, so schools who are allowing trans girls to compete on women's sports teams. And Ellison is filing suit claiming that the executive order violates both constitutional rights and Title IX of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Fun fact about Title IX, all of the wins that we've been having on LGBTQ discrimination and overturning those have actually not been based on sexual orientation. They've been based on Title VII and Title IX of the Civil Rights Act. Title IX deals with the sports. Title VII deals with a bunch things that are not sports related, but related to gender discrimination. And the argument, to boil it down, has basically been, if you expect, there's no problem being attracted to a man. The discrimination is happening based off of gender identity. We don't like men being attracted to other men. We don't like women being attracted to other women. So the discrimination is not actually based off sexual orientation. It's based off of gender identity. So very interesting then that he's bringing this case citing Title IX violations. Originally, he said that Minnesota would not comply with the executive order because it would violate the Minnesota Human Rights Act. And a lot of states have been relying on this, refusing to comply with Trump executive orders, saying, we have states' human rights acts to follow. So it's very interesting now to be seeing blue states using the states' rights argument, and we'll see, where this goes in court. When Ellison did that earlier this year, DOJ, headed by the former Attorney General Pam Bondi of Florida, now the U.S. Attorney General. DOJ, I know, right? DOJ sent a letter to Minnesota saying that if we didn't comply, they would, withhold funding. They sent another one on April 8th. And then on April 16th, the DOJ announced that they were going to seek, quote unquote, judicial resolution and withhold all the funds for sure, for real this time, guys, from Minnesota. So Ellison was like, nah, I'm not having this. He announced a lawsuit on April 22nd in a press conference. And he said, and this is what I love about Keith Ellison, I'm not going to sit around waiting for the Trump administration to sue Minnesota.
Right.
Said that in the press conference.
Good job.
He went on to say, today Minnesota is suing him and his administration because we will not participate in this shameful bullying. We will not let a small group of vulnerable children who are only trying to be healthy and live their lives be demonized. Right. Many of the parents are here today and think, Bottom line, in Minnesota, everyone is included in the circle of our compassion and no one is out of our circle of protection.
But we really have to be able and willing to back up Keith and Governor Walz and anyone else that's Aaron Murphy, anybody that stands up to this kind of thing. I think every single Minnesotan ought to think about this, and probably everyone in Illinois ought to as well. If we're going to stand up to him, what does that exactly mean? J.B. Pritzker said at an HRC event a few weeks ago that we have to stop thinking that that our hope is somehow going to sustain us until 2028. Instead, he's like, we got to think like street fighters. And boy, that was one of the most admirable things anybody has said. That is A100 the truth. Think like a street fighter.
Well, something I really love now about being on WCPT 820 is how more systematic we can be in our coverage of Governor J.B. Pritzker. Because there's things I'm like, I want to get to know more about you. And now I can be more systematic in that coverage. I think for folks who still feel queasy, they're like, I support trans folks, but the sports thing, I'm not going to get into all the science of it now. There are previous episodes where we did, and we're going to continue to revisit that. I would say that less than 1%, for example, of NCAA athletes or trans.
Right.
A.
Right.
B, if you're a trans woman on estrogen, that is actually actively giving you a disadvantage because the estrogen is actually breaking down muscle mass. So there are a lot of folks that are saying, if you are on estrogen for 12 months, some say 24 months, you are actually then seeing a balancing out of any biological advantage. But it's also very sports contextual dependent, right? So apparently in fencing, I learned this diving into the research. Being left-handed is actually considered more of an advantage than anything else in fencing. I had no idea.
Wow.
Like the majority of folks who are like the most successful fencers in the world, it's because they're left-handed.
Not men or women. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So it's very, sports contextual dependent.
Right.
And actually there are just a lot of very interesting studies when you're looking at the longitudinal studies. Those are the ones that I like. Longitudinal meaning the ones that you're looking at over time. Those are the ones I'm most interested in, showing that there actually isn't this advantage that everybody thinks, is happening in the various sports.
Right.
So I just think that it's something where it's such a small group of people. If you're someone that's like, I support trans people, but I don't think it's, whatever they're saying now on the right, biological males participating with females, that's actually not the case of what's happening here.
Right.
And when you look at how, puberty blockers and the medication and taking estrogen and any surgeries that you're taking for like breast reduction or bottom surgery, like,
wouldn't you expect
it balances out.
Wouldn't you expect to see some huge discrepancy of performance?
Thank you.
I mean, where's the data that supports
that? Is the other thing. When you look at who is winning when trans women are participating or trans men, you do not see that.
Right. It doesn't, it's a fallacy. Maybe you think in your little mind, you think, oh, this makes sense. But when you look at the data, there isn't anything that supports it.
There's not. When you look at the sports where trans women are participating, you do not see all of the trans women excelling and winning all of the awards and winning all of the trophies.
Right.
You don't. It just doesn't happen.
It's an irrational fear, like so many of our irrational fears, right?
Well, yeah, but it's also, that is, I would argue, also internalized sexism.
Well, I get,
I think when people think, they think of like figure skating and they're like, Tara Lipinski, this, little sprite fairy is now going to be competing against a center back from the Bears or the Vikings. And it's like, no, that's not actually what's happening.
But that's what I first thought when you and I first talked about it. I said, we better see some data. And the data is not there. It does not support this irrational thinking. So
it's not.
Go for the data and you'll feel a lot better.
Yeah. And that's why I talk about the longitudinal studies. I think there are shorter term studies that you will see that say, no, trans women do have a physical advantage. And it's like, but even looking at the difference between 12 months of being on estrogen and 24 months on being on estrogen, when you get that 24 month, then you really start to see things evening out.
Right.
So that's where I like the longitudinal studies. When we get enough time and enough data, I think we begin to see that, these supposed advantages are not actually advantages at all. But there we go on that story. Stay tuned. We'll continue to cover that because obviously that will have national implications depending on where that goes. Next up, we have a segment that derives out of a conversation I was having with a friend recently who I would say is more of a centrist Democrat or more center left, whereas like Jim and I tend to be more of the staunch progressives. And at times I can go even farther left than that, but
yes, he can,
usually within the progressive sphere of influence. But I literally started losing my mind when he was saying that folks like Bernie Sanders and AOC are left-wing extremists, and they're just as bad as Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, obviously MAGA, and Trump. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I thought, why don't we create a segment on this show where we look at something and say, because queer people tend to be more progressive, I would say, on the whole, like 86% of LGBTQ voters voted for Kamala Harris. Now, I'm not saying that Kamala Harris was the progressive candidate, but I am saying that generally speaking, we tend to be on the left side of things and we tend to gravitate towards progressives. So when you're telling me that progressives are extremists, I take that personally. Now, last week we talked about taxation. Okay. And to quickly sum up that one, you can go back to last Monday and listen to the full segment. Progressives want more comprehensive taxation on the 1% and the 3%, right? And we're told that any comprehensive tax reform is left-wing extremism, and only left-wing governments have high taxation rates, right? So I went into the data and found out that in the 1950s, under a two-term Republican President Eisenhower, the top marginal tax rate and the top effective tax rates were much higher than they are today. The marginal tax rate was as high as 91% compared to 37% today. And the effective tax rate in the 1950s was 42 to 45% compared to 26%.
So what's today's topic?
Today's topic is universal health care.
Oh.
So is it left-wing extremism to have universal health care? Now, according to MAGA, for sure, but also some centrist Democrats, if we recall the Affordable Care Act negotiations, universal health care goes way too far, and only far left governments provide universal health care. And when we point to Europe, we're always told that Europeans are all socialists. They are too far left for the United States. That wouldn't work here.
They're crazy.
So I wanted to look at a particular country.
Oh, good.
In Europe.
Okay.
And my question then for my centrist Democrats, what about, and also for my MAGA colleagues, what about Viktor Orban? He is the Prime Minister of Hungary. Over the weekend, Trump Jr. was in Hungary on a regional business trip. He said that Hungary is one of the last bastions of light in the world.
Wow.
And that when you look at, this is a quote from Trump Jr., looking at Hungary and the other countries in the region, it is like heaven. Because the political leadership is protecting the people and the culture. Okay, so MAGA and Trump love Orban. They love Hungary.
Good.
Orban has visited Mar-a-Lago. MAGA wants to implement many of Hungary's policies here in the U.S. Orban and his party have ruled Hungary since 2010, and they are deeply conservative. They hate the gays. Orban is officially considered a far-right authoritarian leader. Hungary has universal health care.
What?
Their healthcare system is highly centralized. The National Institute of Health Insurance Fund Management administers a single health insurance fund in Hungary. It provides almost 95% universal coverage. The 5% are folks who are living abroad, or if they don't have a permanent address, it's up in the air of whether or not, they're covered at any given point in time. But Hungarian citizens can access a broad range of services in the statutory benefits package, all levels of healthcare and medicines. In 2019, the national health system under Orban's government introduced 5 new national healthcare programs covering child health, circulatory diseases, mental health, musculoskeletal disorders, and cancer. In point of fact, under Orban's far-right government, with the exception of just 2 years, public spending on healthcare in Hungary has grown every year since 2012.
And Donnie Jr. called it heaven.
Heaven. And instead of deregulating and creating a market-based healthcare system, they actually passed reforms in 2022 to increase national control. And they've also recently significantly boosted pay for doctors.
So get rid of health for profit.
So
I love that.
Now, here's the thing, though. We report facts on The Gailey Show, and we're going to get into the facts of the system. But we're going to continue on here talking about how is it left-wing extremism? Is universal health care left-wing extremism? So one more break. Lots still to get to. You are listening to The Gailey Show.
Hi, it's Penny from Nightingale, your gathering spot near 26th and Lyndale in South Minneapolis since 2012. Come check out the fun and vibrant atmosphere. Besides our traditional favorites like the Nightingale burger and fries, did you know we also have delicious vegetarian and vegan options? Plus, we have one of the best gluten-free menus in town. And for drinks, our bar staff is always creating fun new cocktails along with a thoughtfully curated wine and beer list. Join us at Nightingale where good times and great flavors come together.
End-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful and comforting to you and your loved ones. Our hospice team provides an individualized program of physical, emotional, spiritual, and practical care so your loved one is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand that choosing the right hospice care provider can be overwhelming, but we're here to assist you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
Step into a world of financial empowerment with the Do Different Better show. I'll be your host, Elaine Rasmussen. Join me Sundays at noon on AM 950 as we do a deep dive into wealth education with topics like investing, real estate, and entrepreneurship. No nonsense, tell it like it is, keeping it 100 for everyday people like you. Tune in to get practical insights to rewrite your financial future. So each Sunday at noon, let's do different better. You can hear Do Different Better anytime on your favorite app. Learn more about me at socialimpactnow.com.
It's no secret that medical care costs are soaring, with nursing home and skilled nursing care costs being some of the highest. You don't have to deplete your savings in order to receive long-term care. At Schroman Law, we work with families to develop and implement strategic planning for medical assistance for long-term care, for assisted living, nursing home care, or home-based care. Contact us today to schedule a free consultation at schromanlaw.com. That's SCHROMEN law.com.
Being a true American means more than just baseball, blue jeans, and rock and roll. Being an American also means taking responsibility. So if you're a man turning 18, do your part. Register with Selective Service. It keeps you eligible for college loans, government jobs, and job training. Plus, it's the law. To register, log on to www.sss.gov or pick up a Selective Service registration card at any post office. Be a man and register.
Social media is shifting to the far right. X, formerly known as Twitter, has embraced MAGA under Elon Musk, while Meta, which is Facebook's parent company, dropped fact-checking and now openly allows users to label LGBTQ people as mentally ill, calling it political and religious discourse. But there's a better option. AM 950 has joined Blue Sky, the progressive social media platform. Keep up with the latest station news and programming by signing up for Blue Sky, then searching for AM 950 Radio and following us. Again, that's AM 950 Radio on Blue Sky.
Welcome back to the Kaylee Show. I'm your host, John Parker. It is 9 minutes before the top of the hour, joined by my executive producer, Jim Pounds. Continuing our regular segment now, Is It Left-Wing Extremism? We're talking about healthcare and universal healthcare and how folks on the right and some centrists say that universal healthcare is too extremist, and we're breaking down what's happening in Hungary, headed by a far-right authoritarian leader and political party. We were talking about how they have invested in their universal healthcare program that they have in Hungary. Now, I want to say, though, that we do report the facts, and the healthcare system, not great. The reason why they started those 5 new national healthcare programs a few years ago is because Hungary has one of the highest rates of preventable mortality in the European Union. They had to raise doctor pay because they were hemorrhaging doctors who were leaving Hungary to find better paying work in medical systems elsewhere in Europe. They also have one of the lowest investments in healthcare of any country in the EU. So like in the US, healthcare is not a priority of the far-right conservative government. What is notable is this. If universal healthcare is left-wing extremism, and if you have been in power since 2010, why not get rid of your universal healthcare system? Why not, as we have heard often, repeal and replace with a conservative healthcare plan? I mean, unlike here, when MAGA didn't have the votes to replace the Affordable Care Act, Orban and his party have had the votes. And it doesn't matter even when point to the Hungarian constitution. Just this month, Orban's government passed a constitutional amendment banning LGBTQ plus events in the entire country. Sidebar, free speech, oh, free speech. Yeah, right. Except for the LGBTQ community, right? Yeah. So they clearly have the votes to amend the constitution of Hungary. Orban's party has had that power, and they've never exercised it. So verdict, is universal health care, as envisioned by progressives left-wing extremism? No, it is not. And anytime that you hear anyone say that, point to Hungary and say MAGA and Trump love Hungary, and they have refused since they took power in 2010 to systematically get rid of their universal healthcare program.
It's heaven on earth.
Yeah, Hungary, heaven on earth. Now, again, of all of the universal healthcare systems, I would not want to do theirs.
No.
I would look more towards Canada, any of the Nordic countries, France, possibly the UK, even though they've been doing some weird things over the past few years. But, there it is. We will continue doing these Is It Left-Wing Extremism segments because I just cannot stand the idea that folks are thinking of progressives as somehow being too extreme for the United States when so much of what we're proposing, tax rates, have already been done in this country. Universal health care are being done by far-right governments in Europe. More to come on these issues. Something that we also cover here on The Gailey Show, special elections. We want to see how the Republicans and MAGA are doing since taking over in the U.S. again, January 20th. And so we've been covering special elections that they've been happening throughout the year. Obviously, we were covering very clearly the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin and the special elections in Florida. Tomorrow in Minnesota is a state race. Jim, tell us more.
Well, it's a state Senate race in the up north, Grand Rapids, that area. And it for many
folks
years,
who don't know, Grand Rapids is in the northern part of Minnesota.
Right, where Judy Garland was born.
Yes.
Or
Speaking
grew
of
up.
gay.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. Gay icon. Okay. It was represented by I would say a conservative Democrat for many years. And then this Justin Eichhorn person flipped it to Republican. But Justin Eichhorn, it turns out, is a child molester. So he's gone, as you would expect. And now there's a special section.
Arrested in the Twin Cities.
Right.
For solicitation of a minor.
Yeah. I won't say what I'm thinking. I'll just move on. Denise Slippy is running as a Democrat, and this is a seat that should remain Democratic. It
should flip.
Should become Democratic. And in Minnesota, you can show up and vote on the day. So you bring somebody to vouch for you. You can, if you've had it with what's going on in this country with being dominated by fascism, get in there, vote in District 6, vote for Denise Slippy, and let's flip that district back to the blue where it belongs.
We're going to keep following special election coverage. We'll see how that goes tomorrow. It's been very interesting watching seats. Like there was the one in Iowa. There was a deep red Senate district that flipped in January. There were a couple that we watched in February that were in Connecticut and California that basically stayed along party lines. We had a House one in Roseville that basically stayed the same. It was a blue district. We did see in Florida the special congressional elections where the Democrats didn't flip them, but they improved on their performance substantially.
At least 10%.
Only losing by like 10 points as opposed to losing by 30 points.
Right. 10 to 15% has been common. And then in that one Roseville district you talked about, it actually went from 82% to 91%. So it still increased dramatically. And I think that is the protest vote of people that have had it up to there and beyond with what's going on. And this is your chance. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat. It doesn't matter if you're an independent. If you've had it, come in and vote for the Democrat and tell these people to park by the side of the road and knock it off. And this is your chance to do it in Minnesota District 6.
Not just knock it off. Give up and go away.
Go away.
You're ruining people's lives.
Government of harm is not the way this country was founded.
We don't vote for cruelty.
No.
And that's something that we should, if people walk out of this administration and think cruelty is a positive policy platform to pursue, we will have failed on this show and as progressives and as the Democratic Party, if people think that is still a valid option to vote for. Anyway, that is our time for today. Thank you for listening and or watching. Up next on WCPT 820 and AM 950 is the Matt McNeil Show. For folks in Minnesota, stay tuned after that for Native Roots Radio. Stream our show everywhere you get your podcasts. Connect with us on Blue Sky at thegaileyshow.org. And until tomorrow, Keep it queer, America.
Keep it queer.